Welcome to Mastering X Software Engineering lecture series. From this episode, we are going to discuss about software engineering ethics. Like other engineering disciplines, software engineering should also be carried out within a social and legal framework. And this framework should limit the freedom of people working in that area. When I say limit the freedom, I mean regulating the behavior, the conduct of the software engineer. As a software engineer, you must accept that your job involves wider responsibilities than simply applying the technical skills for developing the software. You must also behave in an ethically and morally responsible way if you wanted to be respected as a professional engineer. It goes without saying that you should uphold normal standards of honesty and integrity. You should not use your skills and abilities to behave in a dishonest way or in a way that will bring disrepute to the software engineering profession. However, there are areas where standards of acceptable behavior are not bound by the laws, but by the thought of professional responsibility comes with the principles of the individual. And some of these are confidentiality, competence, intellectual property rights, and computer misuse. Let's take the first one, confidentiality. You should normally respect the confidentiality of your employers or clients regardless of whether or not a formal confidentiality agreement has been signed. The second one, competence. It says you should not misrepresent your level of competence. You should not knowingly accept work that is outside your competence. The third one, intellectual property rights. Here you should be aware of local laws governing the use of intellectual property such as patents and copyrights. You should be careful to ensure that the intellectual property of the employers and clients is protected. The fourth one, computer misuse. You should not use your technical skills to misuse other people's computers. Computer misuse ranges from relatively trivial, for example, game playing on an employer's machine, to extremely serious, such as dissemination of viruses or other malware. Professional societies and institutions. In other words, we call them as professional bodies. These professional bodies have an important role to play in setting ethical standards. In the computing industry, the organizations such as ACM, Association for Computing Machinery, IEEE, Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, and the BCS, British Computer Society, publishes a code of professional conduct or code of ethics. Members of these organizations undertake to follow that code when they sign up for the membership. And these code of conduct are generally concerned with the fundamental ethical behavior. Whatever the things written in these code of conduct documents, in the practical world it is little difficult to follow them as it says. In any situation where different people have different views and objectives, you are likely to be faced with ethical dilemmas. For example, if you disagree in principle with the policies of more senior management in the company, how should you react? Clearly, this depends on the people involved and the nature of the disagreement. Is it okay to argue within the organization, or should you resign in principle? If you feel that there are problems with a software project, when do you reveal these problems to the management? If you discuss these while these problems are just a suspicion, you may be overreacting to a situation. If you leave it too long, it may be impossible to resolve the difficulties later. We all face such ethical dilemmas in our professional lives, and fortunately, in most cases, they are either relatively minor or can be resolved without too much difficulty. Where they cannot be resolved, the engineer is faced with perhaps another problem. The principled action may be to resign from their job, but this may be well affected others such as their partner or their children. A difficult situation for professional engineers always arises when their employer acts in an unethical way. Say a company is responsible for developing a safety critical system and because of time pressure, they falsifies the safety validation records. Is the engineer's responsibility to maintain confidentiality or to alert customer or publicize in some way that the delivered system may be unsafe? The problem here is that there are no absolutes when it comes to safety. Although the system may not have been validated accordingly to predefined criteria, these criteria may be too strict. The system may actually operate safely throughout its lifetime. It is also the case that even when properly validated, the system may fail and cause an accident. Early disclosure of problems may result in damage to the employer and other employees. Failure to disclose the problems may result in damage to others. So you must make up your own mind in these matters. The appropriate ethical position here depends on the views of the people involved. The potential for damage, the extent of the damage, and the people affected by the damage should influence the decision. If the situation is very dangerous, it may be justified to publicize it using the national press or social media. However, you should always try to resolve the situation while respecting the rights of your employer. Another ethical issue is participation in the development of military and nuclear systems. Some people feel strongly about these issues and do not wish to participate in any system development associated with defense systems. Others will work on military systems but not on weapon systems. Yet others feel that the national security is an overriding principle and have no ethical objections to working on weapon systems. In this situation, it is important that both employers and the employees should make their views known to each other in advance. Where an organization is involved in military or nuclear work, it should be able to specify that employees must be willing to accept any work assignment. Equally, if an employee is taken on and makes clear that he or she does not wish to work on such systems, employers should not exert pressure to do so at some later date. The general area of ethics and professional responsibility is increasingly important as software-intensive systems spread through every aspect of work and everyday life. It can be considered from a philosophical standpoint where the basic principles of ethics are considered and software engineering ethics are discussed with reference to these basic principles. So with that, we are going to end up this episode. Thank you for watching and see you again in another episode.